This was an alarming lack of logic expressed by Nico Harrison and an astounding amount of tone deafness.
You can do what you want to do as an owner. You can also be called stupid for doing it. And that's exactly what I'm calling Dallas Mavs ownership.
So we finally got an idea of whether or not the Luka Doncic trade was truly worth it for the Dallas Mavericks. And I don't think we needed 2 months to realize what the answer to this question would be, but it's a resounding no, it wasn't worth it at all. It was a horrific mistake, and somehow the Dallas Mavericks are continuing to find revolutionary ways to embarrass themselves. So before we get to the content, I just wanted to give you a little announcement. I will be at Coachella for weekend 2. So if you happen to bump into me, come say what's up. I'll post where I'm at on my Instagram story. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. We've been incredible to start the playoffs, hitting on 3 picks to make over $400, and it's gonna get better from here. Use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a play of $5 or more on PrizePicks, or just click on the link in the description down below and get my picks through my Instagram at TheFlightMike. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? At this point, you guys are pretty caught up to where the Dallas Mavericks are with Luka Doncic. I don't want to go into this gigantic summary of what happened, but for the most part, this was a trade that nobody thought was a good idea for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, just take a look at what the insiders had to say following the aftermath of the trade.
Anthony Davis is going to be out for a while. I also believe that is going to be a significant period. What does significant mean? Weeks and weeks.
This turned into a catastrophe for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, in each and every game, fans were chanting, "Fire Nico! Fire Nico! Fire!" And well, you can't blame a fan base for being frustrated at the situation that the Dallas Mavericks are in. 1 year ago, they were heading towards the NBA Finals, building around a top 3 superstar that hasn't even hit his prime yet in Luka Doncic. Nico Harrison was actually celebrated and was viewed as one of the best GMs in the NBA, selecting Derek Lively and then trading for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington at the trade deadline, and those moves made all the difference when the Dallas Mavericks made the unlikely run to the NBA Finals. They got destroyed by the Boston Celtics, but their moves in the offseason indicated that they very much intended to run it back with the same plan. Build a team around Luka Doncic 2.0, but be even better. Do you guys remember when we were all saying the Dallas Mavericks were the winners of the 2024 offseason? Like, just to remind you, they signed Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, and Spencer Dinwiddie and Klay Thompson chose the Dallas Mavericks over the Los Angeles Lakers. It's things like this that make me feel like the Luka Doncic trade came straight from ownership, and obviously Nico Harrison has to be the fall guy, because you don't just change course on this in the span of a few months.
Nico Harrison did not want to do this. This was not his idea. This was something that was enforced by their owner, Patrick Dumont.
But the trade was done, the NBA didn't veto it, and things would just continue to get embarrassing for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, whether it was this interview that Nico Harrison gave with Jason Kidd not even able to look at the crowd in the eye following the trade.
I'd like to give Rob Pelinka a lot of credit. Rob and I were able to have, really intense conversations over the course of 3 or 4 weeks that started out as a coffee that, was more, hey, would you ever? I don't know, would I?
Honestly, it looked like Jason Kidd wanted to do this to Nico Harrison, to the fact that Anthony Davis originally started out his debut with the Dallas Mavericks, played really well throughout 3 quarters, and then was injured until March 24th. By the time he came back, the entire Dallas Mavericks team was practically injured. Kyrie Irving tore his ACL after trying to play nearly 40 minutes per game. At a specific point, it got so bad that fans were wondering whether or not the Dallas Mavericks would have to start forfeiting games. And at the same time, you have the most out of touch front office that we've ever seen trying to rationalize this trade. And we have some new ones, but I want to go through the old ones too. When their team governor, Patrick Dumont, came out and said, "I'm a big Luka fan. My family are big Luka fans. I have a really deep appreciation for what he brought to this team, what he brought to Dallas, and the excitement he brings. He's an electrifying player. I want you to know I really sympathize with all of our fans who feel hurt. Look, as far as I'm concerned, Luka is a Mav for life, and I really wish him nothing but happiness and success in his career as he continues in LA." Which, by the way, he's not a Mav for life, bro. I mean, Luka Doncic's career with the Dallas Mavericks is almost identical to Shaquille O'Neal's career with the Orlando Magic. You don't remember Shaq for the time that he took the Magic all the way to the NBA Finals with Penny Hardaway, only to get swept in the NBA Finals? And bear in mind, he defeated Michael Jordan's Bulls on the way to that NBA Finals, but you still don't really remember that. Unless if you have like an Orlando Magic old head in your squad, they'll probably remind you. Now, the owner would draw a parallel to Shaq here. If you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. Bro, Shaq didn't work really hard every day. I mean, this is a guy that literally opted to get surgery in the regular season and said that he got hurt on company time, so he was gonna recover on company time. But what's really funny about this is ownership tried once again to relate to Maverick fans, and this one was just bad. I mean, it gets way worse here. So check this out. Dallas Mavericks CEO Rick Welch reportedly compared the Luka Doncic trade to the Warriors trading Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut in 2012. Oh my God, this is so bad. The direct quote is, "The Golden State Warriors once traded Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut. They got better because they had a guard named Steph Curry, and Steph Curry came in and made the entire fan base love him." First of all, Steph Curry was already on the roster. The truth is, the Warriors were trying to decide between Monte Ellis and Steph Curry because Steph Curry was getting injured a lot in the earlier stages of his career. They ultimately decided to trade Monte Ellis for Andrew Bogut, and the rest is history. In this case, I wouldn't compare Luka Doncic, a player that almost averaged a 30-point triple-double in his final full season for the Dallas Mavericks and finished top 3 in MVP voting, to Monte Ellis. If anything, this is more like trading Steph Curry for Andrew Bogut and keeping Monte Ellis. That's probably the better analogy here. And it will get way worse from here. Luka Doncic would return back to Dallas, and watching him watch the highlight film of the Dallas Mavericks, the tribute they gave to him, and just him wiping his tears away is just so gut-wrenching to watch, because you don't have to be a genius to tell this is a guy that really didn't want to leave to begin with. And it's pretty shocking because typically the generational player might get tired of your antics and sign elsewhere or demand a trade, but Luka never felt that way. He wanted to stay in Dallas for his whole career. So just uprooting your franchise out of nowhere and shipping him to LA is just insanity. But it will get way worse from here. Nico Harrison struggled all year long to try to provide some sort of rationale for his terrible decisions. And we have a brand new dialogue on Nico Harrison and his rationale to trade both Luka and Quentin Grimes to the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, I know a lot of us don't talk about this, but Nico Harrison made 2 of the worst trades of the year within a few days of one another. For those of you guys that don't know, the trade that we're talking about is Quentin Grimes and a 2025 second round pick to Philadelphia in return for Caleb Martin. Quentin Grimes since then has thrived in Philadelphia. It's actually kind of crazy. I mean, the man chose Philadelphia to break out. He was averaging about 10 points per game as a Dallas Maverick. He finished the season averaging 22 points per game for the Philadelphia 76ers off of 47% shooting. So yeah, not really the greatest look because the Dallas Mavericks certainly could have used him, but the Mavericks also decided to attach a second round pick to him in order to trade for a way older player who actually regressed mightily with the team and barely even played with the team. Caleb Martin only played in 14 games ever since being traded to the Mavericks. So Tim Cato asks him, "Nico, you didn't speak following the trade deadline. Having addressed the Quentin Grimes trade, I think I understand loosely why that trade was made. You guys did not feel like you were going to retain Quentin Grimes as he went into free agency. Why was a draft pick attached to that trade? And what was the logic behind the negotiations of that deal?" And bro, oh my God, Nico Harrison just makes it seem like he really does not know how to do his job. Nico Harrison would respond saying, "Well, it was really about getting Caleb Martin, and it was less about Quentin Grimes." Bro. Do you understand how crazy this sounds? Quentin Grimes before the trade showed that he was a way better player than Caleb Martin with significantly more potential than Caleb Martin, and you gave him up in a second-round pick for Caleb Martin, but I'm gonna let him finish. We traded for Grimes, and we got a good look at Grimes. Great player. I think it worked out for both teams. It worked out for him. He's a free agent situation, so we got to go to a team where he can shoot all the balls and really display his offense. And for us, we weren't interested in that. We were interested in how he could help us win games. And we had the opportunity to get Caleb, which the opportunity only afforded itself because Anthony Davis. He gave us that ability because he had a trade clause, a trade kicker, and he opted out of that. And so that gave us the room to be able to do that. And you're going to notice that the theme with these Nico Harrison interviews is the guy doesn't give you an answer that makes sense. I mean, Tim Cato would try again. The perception is that Grimes is a younger, better player than Caleb Martin. Maybe you disagree, but why was a second-round pick, a valuable second-round pick, attached to that deal? And Nico Harrison's response is just insane. I mean, well, if you don't like Caleb, then you're not going to like the trade. But we valued Caleb more, and we also got a second-round pick back. But he attached a second-round pick. So first of all, let's break this down. According to this article on LibertyBallers.com by Aaron Grugan, the second-round pick that the Mavericks got back was not originally in the trade deal at all. That concession was made only after there were concerns with Martin's hip after his physical for his new team. The original trade that Harrison was happy to take was simply getting Martin in return for Grimes in the 2025 second. So I'm not sure Harrison should even get credit for the pick added later. Plus, that second rounder that the Sixers coughed up for Dallas to take Martin is their own for 2030, where in the draft order that 2030 second rounder will ultimately fall as completely up in the air as well. The 2025 second they sent to Philadelphia, however, has settled at 35th overall, just 5 picks into the later round. Second round players don't always pan out in the league, but it is a high value pick with big potential that the Sixers got out of the deal. To recap, the Mavs traded away the younger, better player in Grimes and a valuable second rounder for a struggling, hobbled Martin that is on a contract that doesn't expire until after the 27-28 season, with a player option for that final season and a 2030 second round pick that could end up being the last overall pick in that draft. So if you weren't completely sure that Nico Harrison is either a bumbling idiot or is clearly being set out to sabotage the Dallas Mavericks this year, you gotta see what happens with him and Tim McMahon. I mean, Tim McMahon gives us an idea of how bizarre this situation is in this interview.
Christian Clark with The Athletic asked him a little bit later, when those picks are due, do you envision yourself as a general manager? The man said, I've got 3 years left on my contract. I plan on finishing that. This is what happens when you let somebody who's got a very short-term view make long-term decisions. This thing is dark in Dallas, and it's going to get worse.
But according to Mavs Film Room on X, this exchange between Nico and Tim McMahon is something out of an SNL skit. And Tim McMahon asks some really pointed, brilliant questions that Nico is just deflecting. Tim comes in and says, in your own words, you created a 3 to 4 year time frame. In building a finals team, a team that went to the finals last season, you gave up your first round capital control of it in 27, 28, 29, and 30. So 3 to 4 years ends, you're out of your first round draft capital. How is that a logical decision? Explain the logic of that for the long-term best interest of this franchise. So Nico Harrison's reaction to this is, can you repeat that? Tim McMahon asks, 27 to 30, you're out on your first round capital. Your own words, you created a 3 to 4 year time frame. When the credit card bill comes due, that time frame is over. How is that in the best interest of long-term interests of this franchise? And again, 2027 to 2030, you're out of your first round draft pick capital. You build a finals team doing it, and you traded the guy who led that finals team. How is that in the long-term best interest when he's, at the time, a 25-year-old generational talent who could have a 10 to 12-year runway? He's one of the best players that we've ever seen. And Nico Harrison's response just gives you a huge eye roll here. I keep saying the same thing, but defense wins championships. I believe that we have a championship caliber team, not only for now, but also for the future. Obviously, the future will hold if I'm right or wrong. And ultimately, we're going to be held to the standard of wins and losses. And every executive in every field is going to be held to that same standard. But Tim McMahon pressed on, and honestly, God bless him for this work because Maverick fans deserve this. Your long-term best interest though, 2025, 26, and 27, there's your 3 years. Then you're out on your first round capital. How does that make sense for the franchise? And Nico just vaguely answers him here. Like I said, we believe in the move we made. You obviously don't, and that's fine. And you're entitled to your opinions, but we're excited about the future of our team. Tim would respond by saying, it's not what I believe, I'm asking your logic. And Nico would react, this is just so ridiculous. Like, Nico isn't really giving any answers. Again, I think the future will hold. I think once we win, then that will change your mind. Tim would respond saying, and you didn't believe that the team that went to the finals last year with Luka as the centerpiece could continue to contend for championships? And Nico would respond by saying, I'll say this again, defense wins championships. You know, the craziest part about this is the fact that Tim McMahon and Luka haven't always necessarily gotten along.
What else did you say? Because I'm not going to say what he said, but I knew you were going to be the first one to put out something like that. And it's not the issue. I'm just saying you seem to be the first one to always put something bad about me.
Now, there is one way that Dallas Maverick fans could fix this, and Kendrick Perkins says it right here.
It's a way for the Dallas to make this right. Soon as the season is over, you go out and you go get Kevin Durant.
Now, could the Dallas Mavericks get Kevin Durant? Well, we have a completely separate video discussing it, and I'll leave it in the end screen to meet you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.